just before we start the show, I want to take an opportunity to invite you to join me for the Podfluence Weekly newsletter, which is available both on LinkedIn and through the official newsletter channel. Now, if you are on LinkedIn and it's easier for you to follow there, then please just click on the link in the show notes, which will take you straight to Podfluence on LinkedIn, where you can subscribe for free and get weekly updates on Podfluence articles as well as episodes. If you would like to subscribe to the full newsletter where you'll get additional materials and, as my little incentive to you, my pre-podcast guest checklist for you to use when you're appearing on podcast shows so that you can be fully prepared every single time, then please click the link to the official newsletter in the show notes. Hope to see you there. Let's get on with the show.
Welcome to the show. This week I have a very interesting guest with me. Now, if you're ever unsure about how to generate interest in your speaking or your book or your coaching or anything like that, you may have never thought about hiring a PR consultant. My guest today works in PR. She is a well-known PR consultant in Canada, but she works internationally as well. And she shared some really incredible tips and resources to be able to generate PR for you and your business. So if being known is important to you and the kind of work you do, then please make sure you listen carefully, take good notes, and check the show notes for this special episode of Speaking of Influence with Tracy Lamourie. Welcome to Speaking of Influence, the podcast for speakers and professionals or anyone who wants to present with impact. Hosted by presentation persuasion coach John Ball. Remember to like and subscribe. If you're thinking of starting a podcast, there couldn't be an easier way to get started than getting started with Buzzsprout. They have all the tools and resources you need for starting a podcast and getting it out to all the major podcasting networks. Check out the link in the show notes and get your podcast started today. Welcome to Speaking of Influence, Tracy Lamourie. Great to speak to you. Welcome to the show.
Hello, nice to be here. Thank you so much.
Now, this is the first time I've brought somebody onto the show who has expertise and insight into public relations and media, certainly as much as you do. I mean, you're a true professional in this area. Tell us a bit more about what you do.
Yeah, I'm apparently now an international award-winning publicist. Where I work across borders. I work literally globally. We've actually scaled it up during COVID. When a lot of people hear about publicists, they think about television stars and media people and, authors and all that. And I certainly have half of my clientele is creatives and public speakers and authors and such. But the other half is small and medium-sized businesses, which people, especially people in business, don't often think of as needing a publicist. I notice 80 or 90% of entrepreneurs don't think about that, where we as entrepreneurs are very advertorial focused as opposed to editorial in terms of understanding advertising, but not understanding what would make us attractive to the newsrooms. So what I do is basically help experts in every field, and all entrepreneurs are experts, build their thought leadership and build their public image. And thought leadership being that phrase, where you Google your name and you find all kinds of third-party credibility, talking about you, interviewing you, all that stuff. I find my clients opportunities to get on stages, to win awards, and to get media attention, essentially.
So you're a very good person to be connected with then.
So they say. And like I say, I describe it as elevating and celebrating. I came up with that in a podcast, just kind of came out, but that's perfect explanation of what I do with my clients. So they're all doing amazing work, no matter what they do, and just literally across industries and across disciplines. And, it's the most exciting thing because I get to learn all this stuff and really see how it's all exciting, even things I would not have necessarily thought about, because people are building their dreams and building their brands, and it's really interesting stuff. So that's what I do, and I'm privileged to.
Is this something you always wanted to do? Like, were you a little girl playing with your dolls, pretending to have your own PR agency?
No, I have a really interesting trajectory. But it's funny though, when I was a little girl, I used to do this. So I'm looking for a newspaper or something in front of me. This is what I used to do. This is what I would practice. I thought I was going to be in media, which is funny because I am somewhat, but I wanted to be like a TV journalist or a reporter or an author. So I literally used to go like this. I would take the newspaper and pretend there was someone like you in front of me. I would pretend there's a camera, and I would like despite the gloom and doom, the pandemic has unleashed on the economy. Cannabis retailers have reason to be positive. Like I would practice how long I could look and read and look at the camera without looking back at the page. So somewhere in me, I always wanted to do something like that. So now I feed the news so they can tell the people what the news is. So sort of in that role.
Yeah.
But in terms of how I got to PR, no, my trajectory is very strange. I actually learned how to write a press release when I was in entry-level sales and marketing as a 28-year-old who in my, not work life was an advocate and activist on things. And I learned to write a press release literally to let the world know about a man that at that time we believed was innocent on death row. Turns out he was. It was a 20-year campaign that me and my husband led starting as 28-year-olds, which taught us how to use media, how to get media attention and all that. Ultimately, he was released in 2017. He was found, factually innocent. Right. So that's an amazing story. Yeah. And 2 years before that happened, it literally hit me like a light bulb moment. Like, wait a minute. For 15 years, almost 20 years, I've been doing major media, getting us on CNN, MSNBC, Court TV, A&E, CBC. And meanwhile, I'm just going down to my sales job and doing. So it suddenly hit me that I had developed skills in my not day job. And that's where it's a business story, because everybody has something they don't think they love or they, are passionate about or are skilled in, or they don't think about as their 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And I suddenly had that light bulb moment, like, wait a minute, I could monetize some of those skills. And that's when I was like, isn't that a publicist? Somebody who would deal with me.
Right.
Like that was literally 15 years after I'd been doing that on a not-for-profit basis. Then it suddenly hit me like, wait a minute. And at that moment, I was like, okay, I'm not doing this 20 phone calls an hour for something I don't care about anymore.
Yeah.
And I was already doing that from home. So I was able to, I'm strategic and I think how to navigate things just the same way as I have through COVID, which has built my business so successfully. So I figured out how to get a client or two. And then I did amazing work for that client. And then I got, next client that came to me was Rosa Parks' cousin.
Oh, wow.
Like Rose, the Alabama basketball guy, about her book and movie called My Life with Rosie about Rosa Parks' next 30 years of advocacy. So that obviously gave me the confidence. Whoa, I'm really in the game. Like this is, I'm thanked in that movie. And then from then on, I guess where it's all about really self-confidence and, understanding yourself as an expert. So now that's what I do with my clients. Like, why aren't you in media? And they're like, well, why would media want to talk to me? Because you're an expert. And I teach them how to see themselves that way and then how to access those opportunities.
I find that really fascinating. It's like, do you think you would have ended up anywhere like on this trajectory had it not been for your activism and for the work you were doing for the causes you cared about?
PR was never on my radar. Like I said, growing up, I wanted to be a journalist, but what I actually ended up doing was I was not in school. I had not gone to university. I still haven't. I never went to school for this. And, I just had to start. Like I wasn't privileged. I had to just start working. And I started working in sales and marketing. And that likely, I was never taught to own a company. I was never taught even to think of myself as a freelancer. So that kind of fell into that. And then from there, my business-minded friends were like, you need to register your company. And finally, they pushed me to do that. I did that for 5 years and then getting increasingly more successful. And my business consultant is like, you're pitching you're still acting like a freelancer, but you have international clientele and you've developed your own international relationship, reputation. So like, start thinking smart and go into business. But we are not taught that.
No, of course not.
Unless we go into business school, we are all trained to be employees, right? And now that I look at that, I feel, oh my goodness, it's so sad. Because I'd never thought of myself as a business owner or as a corporate person. But now that I look at other people's trajectory, I realize even the jobs that I thought were well paying, when I was at this level, they're really not, because you get to that 50,000, 60,000, 70,000, 80,000, and then that's it. When you can't get past that unless you're good at investing or something. If you're on the corporate track, that's it. So I feel like I'm really lucky that something happened. It took 15 years for me to figure it out.
But you did, thankfully.
But I did. And that's the funny part. Why didn't I think earlier than that? Gee, I could monetize this.
You weren't.
I wouldn't have wanted to monetize that.
I guess it's because you weren't doing it for you. You were doing it for the causes that you cared about. But to me, that's one thing that I find fascinating, because I think we will always do more for others, especially when it's people and causes that we care about. and we will go further. So, things that you would have done for them, like contacting media agencies and pushing to really get that, was all for a really meaningful purpose.
Like it meant it. Yeah. It wasn't like, oh, I'm applying for a job. It was like, we got to do this. Yeah, exactly.
And so somebody's life was at stake, in the first time around. And so when you can do that, even if it's for different reasons, then absolutely you can repeat it again and put yourself in a position where you get the benefit from it as well.
But I mean, even still to this day, we're like still really heart centered. No matter how big we get, this company started about messaging, not about money. Well, the company started about money, but that was 15 years later. I mean, what led us to this company was messaging. And, I will never we will never use our platforms to put stuff out in the world that is either not everything has to be a giant cause. It's also small business, but we will never use our platform to put out anything that is not good for the world, that is bad. We will never elevate people who have bad things to say, or problematic things. It's always about building something good. And that's always what it's going to be. And my story is, what? The money will come, because I had no idea about business. I had no idea, didn't even care about it. I was one of those people that would have thought, if anything, look at business people kind of like this. Oh, they clearly don't care about the things I care about, Now I'm realizing how wrong that perception was. And now the more I speak about my business story in hard business audiences, the more I'm able to, suddenly I'm educating people and realizing they care a lot about this stuff as well.
Right.
So it's interesting that you learn about perspective. And the money does come. It comes once you actually care about something and you're putting your all into it. Not 15 years ago, because that wasn't our goal. Our goal was getting that guy off death row, and it worked. And that's a great way to spend your 30s. But our goal now, it continues to be to show that we can start on that and to build an international award-winning business that people pay attention to, whether they care about the advocacy or not. Now they're like, ooh, so people who wouldn't have listened before to those messages, listening now. So I think it's kind of neat.
That's great. It's one thing to sort of talk about having ethical, heart-centered business. It's quite another to be living it. But I think maybe because of the areas that I talk and work around and podcast about, I probably do meet a lot of people who are talking about this and operating from that. And I'm less likely to want to be connected with people who aren't operating from that kind of space. And in fact, there have been times when I've declined people as guests for the show and for other opportunities because of that particular issue. Because I think
you just didn't feel it.
And I think who I bring onto the show is also it reflects on me as well, as much as anything else. So I have to consider that, and I think anybody should. I wouldn't bring someone.
Well, you're doing what I do. You're elevating people, and you're promoting by in a different way, right? But you're like giving them those platforms to do more.
Hopefully, I want to help spread the goodness, spread it around and share that with other people as well. So that's important to me. But I love that what you're doing. It's certainly great to hear that the person you were trying to get free from death for all those years ended up being free. Are you still connected with him? How is his life now?
Yeah. We talk almost every day or every second day. And obviously it's a struggle going through, it's not, you don't just walk out of prison after 25 years, and death row we didn't even hear some of the stuff that he went through because he wanted to keep it, not worried about those things and focused on getting him home. So he's PTSD and trauma and all that kind of stuff. But also he walked right out of prison and into the music studio, because when they stole him away, which is how we describe it, when they stole him from his life 28 years ago, he was about to sign a record contract in Philadelphia. He's an R&B artist. So the whole time he was in prison, what kept him going was he couldn't sing when he was in there. He didn't have the feeling for it, but he said, never, never give up. I'm going to get out. He made those plans. He's going to get out. He's going to get out. And when he got out, he went right into the recording studio because people were prepared for him to do that. They had licensed his song, all that. It started connecting him. And anyway, basically, he was on a panel with Ja Rule and Naughty by Nature a few months ago talking about police accountability in America. He's recorded 4 amazing songs. Record companies are sniffing around, and not as a novelty act. And, there's interest in documentary film and all that kind of stuff right now, but he's really focused on the music career. And this is the best thing. He called me the other day and he said, go search my name on Google. now. I said, why? He said, my ex-lawyer from the criminal justice case called me and said, Jimmy, when you search your name on Google now, it comes up as R&B artist first.
Fantastic.
And then under that, it says BET about the story I'm waiting on. But it's an R&B artist, not death row prisoner, not. So he's like, we have literally made history and we changed the narrative. I've got my life back. So funny part of the story, and Rolling Stone did a piece on this and they were like, whoa. So again, just to put it into perspective, when this all started, he's the guy on death row no one's listening to because it wasn't a big case. There wasn't a well-known case outside of Philadelphia. We're literally 28-year-old penniless. Well, we were working entry-level sales jobs, like no money, no, how the heck do we do anything like this? And by the time he gets out, 20 years later, we're international award-winning publicists, and he's walking into the music studio. What? Like, it's literally like a movie.
Yeah. It is. I mean, what an incredible story.
Really, right? So now he's literally, we say my friend, my brother, my hero, and my Lamourie Media client. So go download on all streaming platforms. That's Jimmy Dennis.
Well, quite right too. I mean, what a way to generate a loyal client.
But it's crazy though, because I mean, honestly, like none of that stuff happened. Like it all happened. It's just so weird. Like you could not have planned it, and nobody did. So yeah, we talk almost every day, and we're still family. He calls our children, my husband and myself, he calls our kids his nephew and niece, and we call his daughter our niece.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
So yeah, crazy stories.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us as well. I want to get a bit more into the PR stuff now. A lot of the people who tune into my show are doing professional speaking, presenting, that kind of thing, and are probably going to be quite interested in hearing from somebody in the PR industry as to what kind of things that they should maybe be thinking about or look into, whether they should even be thinking about coming to work with somebody like yourself. What's working, what isn't? What can you tell us, Tracy?
Absolutely every entrepreneur should, no matter what they do, or even not just entrepreneurs, people who have a message. Sometimes you maybe wanted to share your personal story, but absolutely every entrepreneur or person in business should be considering PR, even more, I would say, than they consider marketing. Because, I mean, marketing we all think about, but 80% of, like I was saying, 80 to 90% of entrepreneurs have a blank spot. They do not consider media, they don't even understand how they can get into media, why they should be getting into media. We start to hear thought leadership now, so that's a phrase bandied around, but that's pretty much what we're talking about, is building your personal, and it's not about building when we say your brand, we don't mean your product. We mean building your personal brand, which goes beyond, your company. It's your personal credibility. So that when you speak about your company, when you speak about whatever else, it bleeds onto that. But essentially, for example of why it matters, I had a client that I've been working with only 6 weeks who said to me after 4 weeks, which we'd done 4 articles and I got her a couple interviews by then, she said, you've literally changed my business. And she was at a very sensitive stage where they just got $500,000 in seed funding, and they're pre-seed funding, and they're looking for seed funding. And she said, literally those few articles that we got made investors take them more seriously. Quote, that's huge. Made people from her past, people that she hadn't seen in 10 years, start coming out of the woodwork. Oh, wow, your business is doing really well. Wow, look what you're doing. I never heard that before. It's so true, though. It siphons off customers from your competition. You'll get more stages and more awards because I know you said you're mostly authors and speaking and public speakers and that. Whether it's people like that or, a real estate agent, when people are looking at you to decide whether you are the one they're going to put on their stage or you're the one they're going to hire, and your page has all kinds of international quotes. You've been a guest on this show. You've been featured here. You're quoted in Reader's Digest, in the New York Times, which is the kind of media I get from my clients on the daily. That's a credibility that you can't buy. So you can, I always say, if you have a marketing budget, if you have any, if you have more money than time, absolutely put aside some for PR, even if it's only for a month or 3 months, because it'll blow open your mind. There's no other way to say it. When you see the results and the way a publicist will present you and the kind of opportunities we find, as opposed to the guy sitting there just doing his day job and not getting those kind of results. We literally make, like my hairstylist client is a celebrity stylist now. 2 years of working with me. After the first month, she's like, oh, you can't call me that. I'm like, watch. because then she was doing hair for celebrities. So she's like, but I'm not the celebrity. I'm like, yeah, you are. Within a month, she's quoted in Reader's Digest, in Oprah.com, in Good Health. So now I'm like, you're not the celebrity style. What do you think a celebrity stylist is? So it's about, finding those opportunities that you can't pay for. So you can't buy those way into those. You can buy a publicist to our strategies and our work and our writing and our connections to put you in that position and to, find those opportunities for you, but you can't buy your way in. And that's why it's credibility. You can't pay to be quoted in Reader's Digest. If you quoted in Reader's Digest, you are an expert. And that's why, it's going to be more attractive to the investors. It's more attractive to you potential people that are hiring you to put you on their stages. And certainly speaking in particular, I myself have segued my business now into a speaking business. I'm excellent at PR. My first 9 years, I was doing all the service. Then COVID hits and I'm still doing it. But all of a sudden I start pitching myself to podcasts and speaking engagements as opposed to just my clients. And what I've learned out of this during the age of COVID, now they're doing articles on me. I was on Ticker TV in Australia, but how I built a global business from my basement during COVID, or globally recognized business, because we have a million opportunities. And again, it's all about being strategic. And because I work with celebrities and small business, I know we're all doing the same thing right now. All of us sitting in front of the screen, looking at it, trying to figure out how we're going to navigate the new world. Everybody's doing that, right? Hopefully it's not the new world forever, but I mean, how we're going to navigate this space we're working in. Right. So that means as many opportunities that have closed have opened. So I've been booked on, I've either done or I've been booked on over 180 global podcasts since June, from Oman to Turkey, like literally around the world, from United Arab Emirates to Nigeria, to Toronto, and beyond. And as a result of that, and I wasn't even thinking about it as marketing. I was just thinking about it as media. And I wasn't thinking about it as networking. But in the age of COVID, if you do any kind of business to business, like a speaker, get out there, spend your time, unpaid time on podcasts, do it, find these opportunities. Because what I've done here is now I've realized halfway through doing that on the other side of COVID, I've literally built a second successful high profile career out of my first one, the PR one that I was doing 6 months ago, that I still am doing, because now I'm speaking internationally to entrepreneurs and executives across industry about building their brand. So not even doing the PR, but speaking about why you need to be doing it and how to do it. So now I'm a public speaker. In 4 months, I've literally segued, I was always a speaker, but now I can literally show and start pitching myself to any stage in the world and say, look at these 180, feel free to watch 180 hours around the world where I've been, and every one of those podcasters are like, wow, this has been full of value. This has really been, so I can write my ticket now for speaking engagements on the other side.
Right.
And, so you have to think the whole world is at our fingertips. We have this box in front, like the meme says, we have this crazy box of all human knowledge and every person in the world that we can reach out to in front of us. And what do most of us do with it? Look at pictures of cats, argue about politics, So instead, don't, take a step back and use the resources that you have really effectively, instead of getting all caught up, especially right now. People are depressed. I know public speakers and entertainers, it's been a really rough year. You've lost all your stages. You've lost every plan you had for the year couldn't happen. Right.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things you can do. So find ways, looking at Haro, help a reporter out, Source Bottle in Australia. Those are easy ways to get in, where you see a reporter is going to be doing a story and you can say, hey, you can quote me on that. Write articles from Medium.
Is there helping reporters out? Is that available in all countries, or is that more US and Canada?
No, that's all over the world, and it's free. It's free. It's something. There's also Source Bottle is an Australian one that's similar, but it does a lot of English speaking. But Help a Reporter Out, while it's probably 75% American, it's usually like, and maybe 20% of the stories might say US only, but there's all kinds of, mostly just, it doesn't have any geographical restrictions on the experts. And so you'll see things there like with, and I'm saying you'll see like hundreds a day. If you go sign up for that to get 3 email blasts a day, you'll see like 200 reporters a day in 3 emails, not like a million emails, with things like for article with a deadline at 2 o'clock on Wednesday, I'm writing an article for Reader's Digest on how entrepreneurs have got through COVID. Something like that, for example. Really generic, just entrepreneurs. Or it could be, looking for real estate agents to talk about what color to paint your kitchen so it'll sell. Or it could be, literally everything. If you challenge anybody listening, no matter what your expertise is, if you look and help a reporter out for like a week, you're going to be like, oh my God, there's like 5 things I could have answered in there. And of course, a lot of people are getting them. So it's all about the pitch. Life's a pitch, like I always say. So you've got to make sure you've got your little pitch well, why you're going to be a compelling answer and all that. But so there's little tips and tricks you have to learn to finesse those things. But the raw material is right there. It's free. Go to it right now. Help a reporter out, or if you have more money than time, because you don't want to necessarily redo your, stop doing what you're doing to learn the job of a publicist for 3 hours a day. So if you have, a few bucks to throw away at it, hire someone like me, hire me. I work internationally and, you'll see everybody is always just like, whoa, I can't believe, why didn't I do this before? Because the difference, just when you see, it feels good to see that, number one, to have your work acknowledged, to be interviewed and to be able to show people who aren't paying attention, look, this is what I do. And it has it's not just vanity. It has bottom line, real world applications.
If your professional success is going to be determined by people knowing who you are, then it would seem that you absolutely have to have good PR. And that rhymed, and you can have it, but
it's an ad. Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, it doesn't matter what you do. Like it can benefit anything. And again, like, it really, when I was speaking at a podcast, and that came to me, I was like, it's true. Every single corporation has a communications department. Everybody, every big corporation, I mean, right? Not a big company in the world that doesn't, or at least a publicist and yet 80 or 90% of entrepreneurs aren't thinking about that. So right there, you can see they're at a huge disadvantage. They're only thinking, okay, I can go and buy an ad. Meanwhile, Bob, big corporation here, he has access to the publicist, to media. He can send out a press release to CBC, you know what I mean? To like BBC, and then he gets the attention. Right. And it's really, there's so many platforms right now that if somebody comes to me today and they hire me today, by tomorrow, someone who's skilled like me and has been doing this for 10 years, we've got the connection. By tomorrow, I've got 3 things already going. You hire me today. Tomorrow, I've already got an article in the works. I'm already pitching. I might have them on 2 high-profile podcasts, depending on. And then that's just the tools for me. Now I still got 30 days to get more media with the tools I just got, and by the end of that month or 3 months, even if you only hire me or a publicist for that short period of time, by the end of it, now you understand what a pitch is. You've got your pitch that we've written for you, which is different than your bio. You've been trained, you just see it, your whole world opens up and you're like, oh my gosh. And it's similar, like we all don't know what we don't know. When I meet an entrepreneur who's not doing this, I'm like, that is like so crazy. To me, it's like, those old I Love Lucy's where the assembly line would be going in front of them.
Yeah.
And so then the assembly line's media going, CBC, do you want media? Do you want media? And people are too busy. Oh no, I'm just, no, I don't want it. No, go get someone else, and they're paying all this money for advertising, which isn't convincing anybody, which, same as when I needed that back end. Like I didn't understand the back end, like we were talking about, because I would have been an employee my whole life because I didn't know how to build a business. So it took people like my business consultant, Jane McCormack, who looks at that and is like, oh my God, what you're doing is crazy. Yeah. She's like, you are like, I would have stayed as a freelancer forever. That was my comfort zone. Like entrepreneurs who never look at media. I'm like, that's crazy, and she was looking at me the same way. You're nuts being a freelancer and, you have this much power that you could, bring into your company, and you're not. And everyone's like, I know I could be. And so it's really a comfort zone or just self-esteem, not even self-esteem, but people just don't believe. Like they see like I said, they see the people that are on stages or getting awards as the other. Now your audience might be different because they're used to being on stages and they're public speakers and stuff. But still, I've worked with a lot of speakers and a lot of authors and a lot of consultants like who are on stages, and they still are not doing media. Yeah. They're doing the same things every other speaker does, going through the same motions and actually sounding a lot the same. Like a lot of times when you go to those, it's all the same kind of message, the same kind of, so you really need to differentiate yourself. You need to be the story. You know what I mean? So don't be afraid to be like, all right, Tracy's going to get up there and talk to you about what she does. Yeah, right. Like you are an expert in what you do. And people, like I said, they say, oh, well, not me. Why would media want to talk to me? Well, but obviously you believe you're an expert, or you wouldn't be taking people's money to be doing what you're doing. You wouldn't be, so just take that confidence level that you have when you put up your business, and don't be afraid to go and share, because you are an expert and you have.
Even to me, this is fascinating, because it's something that I've never really thought about it in the terms that you're presenting it. And you're absolutely right. An investment in working with somebody professional like yourself who knows what they're doing with PR probably has a lot more value than throwing a ton of money into Google AdWords or Facebook adverts, where you don't necessarily know what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Because you're also getting lent the credibility of the platforms that you are getting connected with.
Exactly.
Which is, like you say, it's hard. You can't buy that. You have to.
And anybody who buys, a newspaper ad or, any kind of advertising at all, just honestly, don't buy it for 1 month and just buy a publicist. Because, and I offer budget prices because I teach entrepreneurs about this, and they're not necessarily understanding it. I offer get your feet wet, under $1,000 a month kind of pricing, right? Because then they see what happens and they're like, oh my God, sure, give me more. Let's do it with more. But so for under $1,000 a month, I have 2 different packages under $1,000. So that's under the price of 1 newspaper ad. So you pay me for a month instead of buying 1 newspaper ad. And I promise you, guaranteed, there's going to be more than 2 hours. There's going to be lots of media about you. There'll be articles, whether it's BBC, because sometimes it is, or whether it's, Prosperity Press, a Medium, 5 articles. And it depends where you are. But I mean, I've had a client that had 0 media attention, 26 years old, life coach, like a lot of life coaches, nothing to differentiate her unless you knew her and were working with her. Obviously she was good, but when you just went to her website, no different. And so she hired me, 26 years old. I gave her a really good deal because she was literally like a kid, right? Just starting out. The next day, I got her in Good Housekeeping, and they put her in the print magazine. She decided she was going to share her story of her issues, which was bipolar, living successfully through bipolar. And that's how she thought, well, if people know that I've dealt with this challenge, they want to come to me as a life coach so I can help them. So she had literally just decided to share that story. And the next day I saw help a reporter out. I saw Good Housekeeping looking for, the iconic American magazine, 150-year-old print issue of Good Housekeeping, looking for someone between 25 and 40 willing to share their story about bipolar. Oh my God. So I contacted her. I'm like, not only, and it wasn't just the print issue. It wasn't just the online. It was the print issue. The one that, that's the first time I've been at the grocery counter in my 10 years of PR and saw one of those, the actual magazine at the counter with my client at the top. I am not my mental illness. I'm like, oh my God. And she'd never been in anything before. And now she's been with me for 2 years now. I tell you, she pays every month, because now as a result of that, we've got her 5 million other things, WebMD, this, that. So now she's got a list this long, and you put her beside any life coach and she blows them away in her media.
So, it sounds like investing in working with a PR agent like yourself is going to give much bigger returns than most online advertising that probably most coaches and trainers and speakers are doing currently.
Absolutely.
For those who may be on a more shoestring budget and not quite ready to invest in working with someone like yourself, what do you think are the best things? Because one of the things that I've been saying to people, because I know lots of people say going on other people's podcasts is a really good strategy for promoting your own podcast. But I've now been suggesting it to other people for promoting all sorts of things, and you have alluded to the same thing. What are the sort of things that are going to be the best use of your time if you're looking to become more known as a coach, as a speaker, as an author, trainer?
Yeah. I find the number one that going on podcasts is huge. And I'll say other things too, but I want to mention that too specifically because especially I think it's even like way more, everyone's being told to start their own podcast. And I tell my clients, sure, that's a good thing to do too. But that's a lot of work. That's a whole other job.
Yeah.
Right? So it's another job. And so, but what I've been doing, I am like so crazy scheduled, it's not even funny with my work, right? And yet I've been putting, I've done 180 podcasts since whenever, right? So that is all, I'm not sitting around just like eating bonbon. That is taking time from my work to do those, right? And I paid well, but I'm doing it and it's been worth it because not just the fact that several people have hired me as a result, which I wasn't even thinking about, but like some podcasters have hired me and people listening and all that. But more importantly, from a media and a perspective of what I do, when you Google my name now, like 100 things come up that I did, well-produced interviews promoted by other people. So interviews come up, all I had to do was sit here on my butt and talk about what I love for 45 minutes, right? And then just put it out. And then days later, month later, week later, there's this incredibly nicely produced thing promoting me as, listen to the expert publicist, which I am. But now there's a million things saying so well. I'm not saying it. There's 100 well-produced things from all. So one podcaster, you fill out these things to be considered for the show. And I had filled one out, for a really high profile show. And when he answered back right away, oh my God, of course. When first thing he said when he started interviewing me, he's like, when I searched this woman, she was everywhere. This lady really knows how to get your message out there, So it's exactly true. That's what I do for my clients, Search my name now, but just think about that. As a business, 100 hour-long videos, 150 hour-long videos that somebody else produced, that somebody else uploaded, that somebody else promoted, that somebody else is promoting on all their channels, 100 of them. So, and also being the idea being before we go away from the podcast thing, because it's really, they are so huge now. It's because again, I was thinking of them as media, but they really are marketing and networking too in the absence of those things. Right. And, sorry, I just lost my train of thought on the podcast. Sorry, there's something I may think about it, but there's something really important I wanted to say about that. But yeah, podcasts are just our gold. And, that was it. The head of Matchmaker,
James Mulvaney,
the guy who started Matchmaker, right? One of the podcasters that interviewed me had interviewed him the week before about why entrepreneurs should be on podcasts and everything. And he made such a good point that I've just been quoting this to all my clients and on podcasts as well. It really doesn't even matter if it's a highest profile podcast or one that's just starting. I will put my client on one. They can be the second guest. I don't care. It doesn't have to be on iTunes. It has to be well produced and serious. I won't put my client on something that looks like a joke, right? But as long as they're doing it seriously, it's a serious interview. It doesn't matter to me if it's people say, "Oh, how big is it? Is it 5 listeners or 5,000 or 500?" I'm always like, I don't know. I don't care. To me, I just want the link with you being interviewed that you can put on your website that people will see later, right? But also, and then with the podcast Matchmaker guy made a brilliant point. He said, as a business owner, if somebody said to you on your state, hey, I'm in my town, I'm going to have a little event here. I'm having 30 people at my event. And you know what? You can come up on stage for 5 minutes and talk about your business. Would you do it?
Yeah.
Most people would. Most small businesses would. I mean, not like big corporate, but most small businesses would. Sure. An audience of 30 people, that's 30 potential customers. So think about it the same way in a podcast. Plus a podcast, that's who listens to it right away. Plus it lives there forever. It doesn't disappear like a TV show. Or, you know what I mean? It's downloaded it's fresh every day. New listeners all the time. So podcasters are not less than media. They're a new kind of media. They're different media. And there's advantages to podcasts that you don't have in other media, not just because they're not all easier to get on. People think they are. They're not. Some of them are like as hard to get on as TV, and then other ones are just starting and they're, so they're all over the board. But in terms of PR and publicity, what you want is well produced, which just means serious questions. When people search your name, other people, when people search your name, it comes up in lots of places, not by you, not you saying, hey, I'm awesome on your own webpage.
What sort of advice do you give to your clients for going on the shows as well, to not just to go on them, but how they go on them, how they show up on the shows?
Well, podcasts are much more conversational, right? So you have more space to communicate the way you normally would in conversation. So there's less, training in terms of media that I give. Because when you only have a 7, when you're going to be interviewed on the news, I'll tell people, listen, you're lucky if you get 1 minute, So if you're sitting there thinking all that, if you have something you really need to impart, obviously you can't just throw it in inappropriately, but at the first appropriate moment that you have, do it, because you might be over before you know it, stuff like that. Whereas and how to speak and how, we all have issues, and I speak way too much and I speak way too fast. And, we all have, when you're listening to somebody else, things that we can say, oh, you should do this, or you should say that lesser. But mostly I tell people, just be yourself. Right. You're already the expert. You are the expert. Have confidence and faith in what you know. And it's, just follow the host lead and answer the questions.
Yeah, it's good. It's good advice. I've been lucky enough to have some very well-known people on my podcast before, and it always surprises me to have conversations with them, sometimes before, sometimes after the show, often both, where they're saying that they feel nervous before coming on the show, and that they still have that sort of imposter syndrome thing going on. It's like, it doesn't really matter what level of success you're at. All those things usually are still going on for us, and sometimes even more so. Sometimes they become heightened the more well-known you are. You've got more to live up to.
That's true. And that's a good point, because I've got clients who are like so accomplished, like literally nobody can look at them and not be like painting, art in the Louvre, like literally so, and yet they're still like, that imposter syndrome is a thing. People are still like, oh, well, I don't know. And you're like, or what I see it all the time when people will send me all their biographic details. They will send me, it's usually women in this case. Actually, it's always women in this case. They will send me their biographical details. Like, they sent them. I didn't go and research things they didn't give me. I didn't make anything up, right? I literally wrote like a little pitch from the details they sent me, which means I'm writing in a compelling way, but just the facts, right? And I have had at least 5 women, like different women who don't know each other across industry, say, oh my God, you like literally exclaim in delight. Oh my God, you made me sound so good. And I'm like, have you read your list of accomplishments? Like, I didn't make you sound anything. Like, you gave me that information, and I just wrote it the way you would in a magazine. The way you're used to reading about other people.
Yeah.
Because the way they're used to seeing other people, and they're like, wow, look at me. Look at you.
This is it. It's similarly to working with a coach, working with someone like yourself. You can see people you see them more objectively. You can see them from the outside. It's harder to see your own ability, your own how other people see you. We can't see through other people's eyes, and so we do sometimes get surprised when people. I get people saying, "Wow, it's amazing! You've got all these podcasts, you do public speaking, all this stuff. That's incredible. Life's amazing." And it's like, well, it's just my life. It's just what I do. I don't think of it as being anything amazing or incredible. I'm happy, but it's it's not stratospheric or anything like that. But I'm very happy.
Well, we all feel that way, though. I'm all internationally acclaimed, blah, blah, blah. And, look at my thing. I got 9 million things long, I'm sitting here in my basement office, and I work with celebrities too, that people know their names, and they're just sitting there at their computer, having a smoke. So like when I say we're all sitting there trying to navigate the same, we're all in the exact same position, looking at a screen in front of us going, now what? Everybody. So, really, we're all like literally just. It's all about I hate sounding like I hate when I get to sound like all positive thinking and self-belief, because that sounds like crap, But honestly, like in a way, it sounds like crap. You know what I mean? The same thing everybody says. People are like, "Oh yeah, sure."
Yeah,
you just learn how to say that. But I mean, but it's true though. When you actually live it and you see, like, I should not. There's no reason I should be where I am today. other than, I just started doing stuff. Like that was not, I was not trained for this. I didn't even go to university for anything. I started working, let alone for this. And yet now I'm on stages educating people far more educated than me because I've lived it and I've learned it and I've figured it out. And sometimes when you just, figure it out, you got a lot more knowledge up there than if you stood there and had somebody tell it.
Right, absolutely. So, and when you start getting up onto the higher floors, it's only right to send the lift back down and help other people come up as well. So I think it's a great thing. But we've certainly learned a lot. You've given me personally a lot of perspective in terms of really thinking about marketing in terms of PR rather than just in terms of advertising, because they're not so different. But it is more important to be thinking in terms of PR, especially for speakers and probably even for coaches and trainers and people who really do need to be known in their industry.
Yeah.
If anyone...
And even think, I even hate the term PR, like even though we, because when people hear that, they think about governments and they think about spin doctors.
I tend to think about Absolutely Fabulous, if you remember that.
Absolutely fabulous, darlings. Of course I remember it. Are you kidding? I got the bright red hair. Every 6 months or so, I will post that. Actually, I think I posted it the other day. I had a picture of myself, and we're in Canada. So I had a picture of myself, legal coast to coast, with a long, Canadian joint in one of those, like the 20s, those long 20s things that women used to hold other cigarettes in. Yeah. So I had like a super this is Canada. We have all the accoutrements now. And I had a super fancy thing like this. And I was just like, looked like a rock star. And I was like, absolutely fabulous, darlings. But I don't drink. I'm too busy working at my desk, 18 hours a day, making up results.
I'm sure the reality. I'm sure the reality is very different. And yes,
yeah, there are VIP parties though when it's not COVID.
Tracy, if anyone is thinking of hiring a PR agent and can't go wrong with Tracy Lamourie, so how can they get in contact with you or find out more about you?
Yeah, so they can, the website is lamouriemedia.com. You can reach me on Instagram at Tracy Lamourie PR Media, where you can see all my adventures and client successes. I live on Facebook, Tracy Lamourie. You can also reach me I have 2 numbers in North America, Canadian number 289-788-5881, and then Beverly Hills 424-444-8052. They both come through to me. And yeah, I'm happy to do a free half-hour consult. I literally work anywhere in the world with English-speaking clients. So it doesn't matter if you're in Spain and want media in Australia, or you're in LA and want media all over the place. I've been I have LA in the land of publicists, like LA, Beverly Hills. I have taken clients from there to work on them in Hamilton, Canada. So I can work anywhere, and I promise results. If anybody wants to just test me out, like challenge me, what can the red-haired girl do for me? Let's do it. Under $1,000 for the first month, and nobody walks away unhappy.
That sounds fantastic. And if you didn't get all that written down quickly enough, don't worry. I will put all of that information in the show notes, so you'll be able to find out. So check out the show notes for the episode, and make sure you subscribe as well while you're there. Why not? We could always do with more people tuning into the show.
Where's the subscribe button? Over there? Over there?
You know what?
Sure. Subscribe.
I think it's sort of going to be more under me. We'll see, but it's on the bottom. If you're watching this on
under
YouTube,
him, over there. Subscribe.
If you're watching it on YouTube, hit subscribe. If you are listening on the podcast channels, just subscribe on iTunes, or what we'll call now Apple Podcasts now, isn't it? Spotify, and whatever your favorite podcast networks are. Please make sure you tune in regularly. Tracy, any closing words before we wrap things up for today?
Just in the words of Jimmy Dennis, never, never give up. And I always add to that saying, we didn't get this far to only get this far. And that's, if you're where you want to be, you got further to go. If you're not, if you're depressed, a lot of people are depressed right now. If you're feeling stuck, if you wanted to jump off a bridge yesterday, but you didn't, don't. You're still here. You made it through all that stuff. Whatever crap we all go through in life, you made it, and you're still here. So you got to keep on going. Really cool, better things are there tomorrow, and you don't want to miss them.
Exactly. It's all temporary. Tracy, thank you so much for your time today and for all the wonderful resources, information, and stories that you've shared with us. It's been a delight. Tracy Lamourie, thank you for coming on Speaking of Influence. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Remember to subscribe. And if you really liked it, then please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or one of the podcast networks where you can do that. It really does help people to find the show. Share the show with your friends. Let that be the price that you pay for enjoying a great show. Next week, another great show lined up for you that you won't want to miss with Dr. Laurie Baker-Shenner. And we're talking about elevating your communication in the workplace and at home as well. Laurie is a wonderful guest, very knowledgeable and very experienced, and we had a wonderful conversation and a lot of fun. I know you're going to enjoy it too. If you want to join us on the live streams of the show so you can actually interact with the guests and maybe even ask questions, because we're going to be having Q&A at the end, which isn't going to be going out with the podcast, you can come and connect with the live studio audience. Check out my website, presentinfluence.com. You will find the information and details about the live show there. I'll look forward to seeing you. See you next time.